Do you ever feel completely exhausted after spending time with certain people? Like they just suck the energy right out of you, leaving you feeling drained, stressed, or even a bit miserable. It's a painful reality for many of us as we get older. We thought by this age, things would be simpler, relationships would be calmer. But sometimes, they only seem to get more complicated, even with those closest to us, family included. We reach a point where our peace of mind and our well-being become incredibly precious. We've earned the right to enjoy our time, our hobbies, and the company of people who genuinely uplift us. But what happens when some relationships, even long-standing ones, are actually doing the opposite when they're subtly, or not so subtly, toxic to our health and happiness? The secret is recognizing these dynamics and understanding that it's not just okay, but often necessary, to create distance for your own sake. In this video, we'll look at 5 types of toxic people that you might need to stay away from after 60, even if they share your last name. Because your peace is worth protecting. Watch to the end for something that will surprise you. Let's start with the first type of person who can really drain your energy as you get older. And that's the constant complainer, the perpetual victim. You know the sort. Every conversation is a catalog of woes. Nothing is ever right. The weather's awful. The government's useless. Their aches and pains are worse than anyone else's, and the world is generally against them. There's a difference between sharing a genuine problem and dwelling in negativity as a way of life. The constant complainer isn't usually looking for solutions. They're often just looking for an audience for their misery. And while we all have bad days and need to vent sometimes, being around someone who only sees the negative can be incredibly draining. It's like trying to walk through mud. Every step is heavy, and you feel weighed down. For us after 60, our energy levels might not be what they once were, and our patience for relentless negativity can wear thin quickly. We want to enjoy our time, find joy in the small things, and surround ourselves with positivity. The constant complainer makes that incredibly difficult. They can pull you into their vortex of gloom, making you feel anxious, depressed, or simply exhausted. You might find yourself trying to cheer them up, offering advice, or trying to find silver linings, but it rarely works. They always find a way back to their negative script. So, how do you handle this? Especially if it's someone you see often, maybe a sibling, a cousin, or a longtime friend. Well, the first step is recognition. Notice how you feel after spending time with them. Do you feel lifted, or do you feel heavy and tired once you recognize the pattern? You can start setting gentle boundaries. It's not about being unsympathetic, but about protecting your own emotional space. One way is to limit the time you spend with them. A shorter visit, a quick phone call instead of a long one. When they start their litany of complaints, you can gently pivot the conversation. Oh dear, that sounds tough. But speaking of something else, did you see that lovely garden show on telly last night? Or, if they continue, you can express sympathy but avoid getting drawn in. I'm sorry you're going through that. It sounds very difficult. And then, importantly, don't try to fix it or offer solutions unless they explicitly ask and seem genuinely open. Often, they just want to complain. You are not their therapist, and you are not responsible for their happiness or their outlook on life. Another strategy is to be unavailable for certain types of interactions. If you know a phone call always turns into a half hour of complaining, let it go to voicemail and call them back when you have less time, or when you feel mentally prepared to handle it. You can also choose where you meet. Meeting in a public place, like a cafe, can sometimes naturally limit the intensity and duration of the negativity compared to being alone in someone's living room. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's an act of self-care. You are simply choosing to protect your own peace and energy, which is vital for your well-being at this stage of life. It takes courage to do this, especially if you've always been the one who listens or tries to help. But you have to remember that you cannot fill someone else's cup from your own empty one. You need to keep your own spirit buoyant to enjoy your life. The constant complainer might not even realize the effect they have on you. But their impact is real, and you are allowed to decide how much of that impact you are willing to absorb. Your home, your time, your energy, they are your resources. And you get to decide how they are spent. Don't feel guilty about wanting to spend your precious time feeling good rather than feeling dragged down. It's a simple, but powerful, step towards protecting your happiness. Recognizing this type of person and learning how to navigate those interactions is a crucial skill for maintaining your peace after 60. Now, let's move on to another common source of toxicity that can be particularly challenging to deal with as we get older. Then there's the critic, the judgmental one. This is the person who always seems to find fault, whether it's with your choices, your appearance, your home, or how you live your life. Oh, are you still driving that old car? Or haven't you put on a bit of weight? Or you're not really going to wear that? Are you? Or even comments disguised as concern like, are you sure you should be traveling alone at your age? Or don't you think you should be downsizing by now? It comes in many forms, but the underlying message is the same: you're not quite good enough, or you're doing something wrong. For years, perhaps decades, we might have tolerated this kind of behavior, maybe shrugging it off or telling ourselves they don't mean any harm. But as we get older, this constant chipping away at our confidence and self-worth becomes less tolerable and more damaging. We've reached an age where we are hopefully more comfortable in our own skin, more confident in the decisions we've made, and less concerned about seeking external validation. To have someone constantly questioning or criticizing us can be incredibly undermining and, frankly, quite hurtful. It can make you second-guess yourself, feel insecure, and dread seeing them. Why is this particularly toxic after 60? Because our time and emotional resilience are valuable. We don't have the energy to constantly defend ourselves or try to earn approval from someone who seems determined not to give it. We've lived long enough to know ourselves, our strengths, and our limitations. We've made our choices, and mostly, we're living with the consequences of those choices, good or bad. We don't need someone else to constantly point out perceived flaws or tell us how we should be living our lives. This type of person can make you feel defensive, inadequate, and just plain uncomfortable being yourself. They might do it subtly, with a backhanded compliment or a raised eyebrow. Or they might be brutally direct, claiming they're just being honest. But honesty without kindness, especially when unsolicited and consistently negative, is just cruelty. Dealing with the critic requires a different approach than the complainer. It often involves setting firmer boundaries around what you are willing to accept. When a critical comment is made, you have a few options. You can choose not to engage. A simple, neutral response like, "Oh, right," or a change of subject can work. You can also express how their comment makes you feel, calmly and directly. When you say things like that, "It makes me feel judged, and I don't appreciate it." This can be difficult, as critics often react defensively, perhaps accusing you of being too sensitive, but you are allowed to state how their words affect you. Another powerful strategy is to simply agree, often with a touch of humor, which can disarm them. If they say, "You're not really going to wear that, are you?" You could smile and say, "Oh yes, I absolutely am, I love it." Or if they comment on your weight, "Yes, I am enjoying my food. Thank you." By refusing to take the bait or get upset, you take away their power. You are essentially saying, "Your opinion doesn't control how I feel or what I do." In cases where the criticism is relentless and deeply upsetting, it might be necessary to limit contact significantly. You don't have to subject yourself to emotional abuse, even from family. You have the right to protect your self-esteem. Spend less time with them. See them only in group settings where their behavior might be more restrained. Or politely decline invitations that you know will involve criticism. Remember, you are not obligated to spend time with anyone who makes you feel bad about yourself. Your later years should be a time of enjoying who you are, not constantly feeling like you're under scrutiny or falling short. Recognizing the pattern of the critic and developing strategies to deflect or disengage from their negative remarks is vital for maintaining your emotional well-being and confidence as you navigate this stage of life. It's about choosing to surround yourself with people who uplift and accept you, rather than those who tear you down. Moving on from the critic, let's talk about another type of person whose behavior can be particularly harmful to our peace of mind: the manipulator or the guilt tripper. Now, let's talk about the manipulator, especially the guilt tripper. This type uses your sense of obligation, love, or even just your good nature to get what they want, often by making you feel guilty if you don't comply. Oh, I guess I'll just have to manage on my own, even though I'm not feeling well. Or, after all I've done for you, I can't believe you won't. Or perhaps more subtly, dramatic sighs, hints about how difficult their life is, making you feel like you're responsible for their happiness or solving their problems. This is particularly potent in family dynamics, where there's a long history and deeply ingrained senses of duty and obligation. As we get older, we might find ourselves wanting more freedom, more time for ourselves, or simply the ability to say no without feeling like a terrible person. The manipulator makes this incredibly difficult. They play on our emotions, our desire to be a good parent, sibling, or friend, and twist it to serve their own agenda. They might not ask directly, but their behavior, their words, or their silences are all designed to steer you towards doing what they want, regardless of your own needs or feelings. Why is this so toxic for people over 60? Because we have limited energy, limited time, and frankly, we've earned the right to use those resources as we see fit. We might be looking forward to retirement, pursuing hobbies, traveling, or simply enjoying quiet time. Being constantly manipulated or guilt-tripped into doing things we don't want to do, or giving up our valuable time and energy for someone else's demands, can lead to resentment, frustration, and a profound sense of being controlled. It robs us of our autonomy and our ability to truly enjoy our later years. You might find yourself agreeing to things you later regret, feeling trapped by obligations, and sacrificing your own plans and well-being to avoid the feeling of guilt or the manipulator's disapproval. This can be incredibly damaging to your mental health and sense of freedom. The manipulator often doesn't see your side or respect your boundaries. They are focused on their own needs and how you can meet them. Handling the manipulator requires firmness and a strong sense of your own boundaries, which can be incredibly challenging, especially if you've been in this dynamic for years. The key is to learn to say no, or to offer alternatives that work for you, without over-explaining or apologizing excessively. Manipulators thrive on your guilt, so the less you feed into that, the less power they have. If they use a guilt trip, you can acknowledge their statement without accepting the premise that you are responsible for fixing it. For example, if they say, "I guess I'll just have to manage on my own," you could respond, "Yes, it sounds like that's what you'll need to do." Delivered calmly and without apology, it might feel harsh at first, but you are simply refusing to be drawn into the emotional manipulation. If they hint at needing something, you can ask clarifying questions that force them to be direct, which manipulators often dislike. Are you asking if I can? If they are, you can then give a clear yes or no based on what works for you. Setting boundaries with a manipulator is likely to be met with resistance, possibly increased guilt trips, anger, or playing the victim even more intensely. This is them trying to regain control. You need to be prepared for this and hold firm. Remind yourself that you are not responsible for their feelings or their reactions to your boundaries. You are responsible for your own well-being in severe cases, or if the manipulation escalates into emotional blackmail. Creating significant distance might be necessary. It's a painful decision, especially with family. But your peace and autonomy are paramount. You have the right to live your life without being constantly coerced or made to feel guilty. Recognizing the signs of manipulation and learning to respond directly and set clear boundaries is essential for protecting your time, energy, and emotional health after 60. It's about reclaiming your right to make your own choices and live on your own terms. Now, let's talk about another exhausting type of individual who can really wear you down. Next up is the energy vampire. This isn't a supernatural creature, of course, but a person who leaves you feeling completely depleted after you've spent time with them. Often, they are excessively self-centered, talking endlessly about themselves, their problems, their achievements, their opinions, without showing much interest in you or what you have to say. Conversations feel one-sided. You are merely an audience. They might dominate the conversation, interrupt frequently, or quickly turn any topic back to themselves. You might leave the interaction feeling like you've just run a marathon, not because the conversation was stimulating, but because you've expended so much energy just trying to keep up. Listen, or occasionally get a word in edgewise. These interactions are not reciprocal. There's no balanced exchange of thoughts, feelings, or energy. For people over 60, whose energy levels may naturally be lower, these energy vampires can be particularly draining. Spending an hour with them might mean needing several hours afterwards to recover and feel like yourself again. This is time and energy you could be spending on things that bring you joy, relaxation, or genuine connection. The impact of an energy vampire isn't just physical tiredness, it's emotional and mental fatigue too. You might feel unheard, undervalued, and unimportant in their presence. It can leave you feeling resentful and frustrated, especially if this is a frequent occurrence with someone in your life. They might not even be intentionally malicious. Sometimes, they are simply so focused on themselves that they lack the awareness of how their behavior affects others. However, the impact is the same regardless of intention. Your energy is precious, and you have a right to protect it. Engaging with an energy vampire is like trying to fill a bottomless pit. You keep giving your attention and energy, but you never feel like you've made a difference or had a meaningful connection. So, how do you deal with the energy vampire? The most effective strategy is to limit the amount of time and depth of interaction. Keep conversations brief and focused. If it's a phone call, have a reason to get off the phone after a set amount of time. A scheduled appointment, something in the oven, a need to go out. Oh, I'd love to chat more, but I've got to pop to the shops before they close. If it's in person, try to meet for a specific, limited activity, like a quick coffee rather than a long lunch, or suggest meeting somewhere with natural time constraints, like before a class you're attending, during the conversation. You can try gently redirecting the focus, but be prepared for them to steer it right back. You can also practice active listening, but avoid asking too many open-ended questions that invite a lengthy monologue. Nod. Make brief acknowledging sounds, but don't feel compelled to fill silences or probe deeper. Another important tactic is to disengage emotionally. You don't have to solve their problems or get deeply invested in their endless stories. Listen politely, but maintain a degree of emotional distance. Remind yourself that their need to dominate the conversation isn't a reflection of your worth. It's about their own patterns of behavior. If you find yourself trapped in a conversation, look for a polite exit. It's been lovely catching up, but I really must be going. Don't feel obligated to stay out of politeness if you're feeling drained and unheard. Your well-being comes first. For particularly persistent energy vampires, reducing contact significantly might be the kindest thing you can do for yourself. You're not obligated to be someone's constant audience, especially when it leaves you feeling empty. Protecting your energy allows you to engage more fully and joyfully with the people and activities that truly enrich your life. Understanding the dynamics of the energy vampire and learning techniques to manage those interactions or create necessary distance is a crucial step towards preserving your vitality and peace of mind as you get older. Finally, let's look at the fifth type of toxic person to be mindful of. And finally, there's the boundary violator. This is the person who doesn't respect your limits, your space, your time, your decisions, or your privacy. They might drop by unannounced when you've made it clear you prefer appointments, call you at all hours, disregard your stated wishes like visiting when you've said you're busy, pry into your personal affairs, borrow things without asking or returning them, or dismiss your feelings and needs. They act as if your boundaries don't apply to them, often steamrolling over your comfort zone because their own needs or desires are paramount. This can range from relatively minor annoyances to significant intrusions that cause stress, anxiety, and a feeling of being constantly intruded upon. After 60, we've often worked hard to create a life that feels comfortable, private, and manageable. We might have specific routines, value our quiet time, or have physical limitations that make unannounced visits difficult. Having someone consistently ignore or disrespect these boundaries is incredibly frustrating and violating. It makes you feel like you don't have control over your own life and space. Why is this particularly toxic at this stage of life? Because respecting boundaries is fundamental to healthy relationships and personal well-being. When someone repeatedly violates your boundaries, it erodes trust and makes you feel unsafe, even in your own home or your own decisions. It forces you into uncomfortable situations and requires you to constantly be on guard. You might feel resentful, angry, or anxious anticipating their next intrusion. The boundary violator, like some other toxic types, might not see their behavior as harmful. They might see themselves as spontaneous, helpful, or simply close to you. But closeness doesn't negate the need for respect. Everyone, regardless of the relationship, deserves to have their boundaries respected. When they aren't, it signifies a lack of respect for you as an individual with your own needs and limits. Dealing with a boundary violator requires clear, consistent communication and reinforcement of your boundaries. It's not enough to hint. You need to state your limits explicitly and calmly. For example, please call before you come over, as I'm not always available. If they show up unannounced, you don't have to let them in. You can politely say, "Oh, hello. It's lovely to see you, but I'm actually busy right now. Could you call next week to arrange a time?" It might feel awkward, but you are teaching them how you expect to be treated. If they call at inconvenient times, you can say, "This isn't a good time. Can I call you back later?" And then make sure you do, but at a time that works for you. If they pry, you can politely decline to share information. "I'd rather not discuss that." Or, "That's a private matter." The key is consistency. Boundary violators often push back, testing whether you're serious. If you give in sometimes, they learn that your boundaries are flexible. You need to reinforce them every time they are crossed. This might mean repeating yourself, limiting contact if the violations continue, or in more serious cases, having a direct conversation about their behavior and its impact on you. It's uncomfortable, yes, but necessary for your peace of mind. You have the absolute right to decide who enters your home, when you answer your phone, what you share about your life, and how you spend your time. Protecting your boundaries is protecting your sense of self and your autonomy. It's about creating a safe and predictable environment for yourself, free from constant intrusion and disrespect. This allows you to relax, feel secure, and truly enjoy your personal space and time. So, we've talked about the constant complainer, the critic, the manipulator, the energy vampire, and the boundary violator. Recognizing these types isn't about labeling people permanently or writing them off entirely, especially when it's family. It's about understanding dynamics that can be harmful to your well-being and empowering yourself to manage those relationships in a way that protects your peace. Your later years should be a time of relative peace, comfort, and enjoyment. You've navigated many challenges in life, and you deserve to spend your time and energy on things and people that uplift you, support you, and bring you joy. Setting boundaries, creating distance, or even, in rare and difficult cases, limiting contact significantly with toxic individuals is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation, an act of prioritizing your own mental, emotional, and even physical health. Your peace is incredibly valuable, and it's okay to be protective of it. Sometimes, the surprising truth is that the relationships that have been a source of stress and unhappiness for years might never fundamentally change. People's core behaviors are often deeply ingrained, and while we can't change others, we absolutely can change how we interact with them and how much we allow their behavior to impact us. This can be the most difficult part, accepting that you might not be able to have the relationship you wish you could have with someone, and making the tough decision to protect yourself. But imagine the lightness you might feel, the energy you might gain, the peace you could experience if you weren't constantly battling these toxic dynamics. It's a difficult journey, and it often involves working through feelings of guilt, sadness, and obligation, especially with family. But your well-being is worth that effort. Remember, small changes in how you respond, how much time you allocate, and the boundaries you set can make a big difference to your health and happiness. You are allowed to choose who you spend your precious time with, and you are allowed to want your interactions to be positive and respectful. It's a courageous step to prioritize yourself in this way, and it's one that can lead to a more fulfilling and peaceful life after 60. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Have you encountered these types of people? How have you managed those relationships? Share your stories and insights in the comments below. Your experience could help someone else. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content focused on living your best life at every age. Thank you for watching. And remember, your peace is a priority. Live your best life at every age.